Liberation comes to Broadway this fall after an extended off-Broadway run. The new play from Bess Wohl explores the women's movement of the 70s and its residents today. Here's Beth Stevens with another edition of Building Broadway.
Let's just tell people where we are, because we have the bookshelf.
Yes.
We have I assume you lie here and you're contemplating amazing characters.
Napping.
Napping.
Napping is a huge part of my process.
And then we have this amazing view.
Yeah.
So this is a great place for you to really open up your creativity.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about Liberation, coming to Broadway. What first sparked you into Liberation?
The play really came from this almost lifelong desire from when I was very small to understand the feminist movement. My mom worked at Ms. Magazine when I was a little kid. I spent a lot of my childhood going to Ms., meeting her friends, grew up with great feminist flashcards instead of baseball cards. You know what I mean? I was
What's on a feminist flashcard?
Oh, it's like Sojourner Truth and Susan B. Anthony, and you're learning about all these amazing women through history. So I was really steeped in that growing up. And it kind of became part of my worldview. And then as I grew up, I noticed ways that my own life was coming into collision with some of the ideas that I had grown up with. And I really wanted to write about it. And so I spent, really probably over a decade trying to figure out how to write this play, how I wanted to approach the material, what the play would be. And Liberation is the result of all of that life and all of that work.
And this play really is in conversation between the 1970s and the present. So tell me about that.
I knew that I didn't want to write a play that was just a history play. I wanted something that felt really current, really now, and I wanted an opportunity to look at and talk about all of the changes that are happening in the world right now. At the same time, because of how I grew up, the women who fought for their rights in the 1970s loomed really large for me. So I wanted to find a way to put those two decades and time periods in conversation with each other. And the play, quite literally puts them in conversation with each other. It's a real mashup. And I was just really interested in jumping in time and the way theater can do that, unlike almost any other art form.
How have different generations reacted to this show?
It's been really interesting because there have been people coming and bringing their grandmas or bringing their daughters or coming back, with groups of women from all different generations. And that's been really exciting to see. I think, a lot of women who were there for the women's liberation movement in the 1970s have come, and they have obviously an incredibly strong stake and investment. And the biggest compliment that I've gotten from them is I didn't know how I was gonna feel on the way in, seeing my story told, and by the end, you totally had me. And people saying how did you know? You weren't there. So we've been able to give them the opportunity to be seen and to have their story told has been really amazing. And then having younger women come and invest in the story in a whole different way. Whitney and I had an amazing night at a preview where we sat behind these two women who seemed like they were kind of in their 20s. And at certain points in the play, they were just what? Oh, how can this be happening? How can she be making that choice? And so seeing them be so personally affected by the play, that's really exciting too. And, maybe, and Whitney always says this too, maybe they leave understanding generations before them in a slightly different way than they did before.
Let's talk about where you set it. It's off the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to write about all the women who are doing the sort of grassroots organizing and work outside of New York, LA, Chicago. There's a great book I read called Feminism in the Heartland that really makes the point that these kind of groups were happening all over America. This was and all over the world. This was a worldwide consciousness raising or awakening that was happening. And I was really interested in finding those stories. I felt that we've seen the story maybe a little bit of the sort of coastal women, and I wanted the women who like maybe had a feminist book like hidden under their mattress, you know, and they were like pulling it out and reading it at night, or, you know, the women who were showing up at something not really knowing even why they were there, you know, really. I think what keeps these women going in my play more than the sort of political ideas is like the friendship and the camaraderie and the joy that they're finding
also
together.
in those places, I'm from Ohio, this is set in Ohio,
Right.
you're farther apart.
Yeah.
So to do this takes more effort maybe. You have to drive to the basement to meet the people.
Totally, and it's a time before the internet, right? And that was a really interesting thing for us to all consider, because especially talking about young people coming to the play, a lot of them, you know, haven't existed in a world without a phone. And of course we take your phone away when you come into the theater. So we're creating a world without phones. And I think as like for people pre-internet to find like-minded people was so much harder, you know, because you couldn't just search whatever you were interested in online. So I think there's a different kind of need for community. We still need it now, obviously, but there's just a different kind of isolation, as you were saying.
The phones are actually put into the yonder bags.
Yeah.
They're locked during the performance. Why is that?
That is because part of the research that I did revealed that a lot of consciousness raising groups would sometimes meet in the nude. And it was something that the women that I spoke to really wanted to talk about. They were very excited to talk about with me. And I just felt like I had never seen a scene like that on stage before. It felt very transgressive and exciting to imagine writing it and doing it. So there is a scene in the play where the group meets in the nude, and it's really, for me, what feels revolutionary about it is putting women on stage without clothes on in a way that's not sexualized, it's not prurient in some way. They're talking about what they love and what they hate about their bodies. And ultimately, it was a process to get there. We worked with an intimacy coordinator. We were very careful about making sure everyone felt comfortable and valued and in control. And ultimately, it became for our whole company sort of like the heartbeat of the play in certain ways.
So as audiences are leaving this play, what conversations do you hope that they have?
Oh, wow. I hope that it makes them think a little bit more and maybe differently about the concept of liberation in their own lives. You know, what are the things you do that make you feel free? What are the things you do or the places in your life where you feel constrained, stuck, frustrated? And how can you shift the conversations that you're having? Because I think so much freedom comes from truthful conversation. And the play is really about like the courage to have that conversation. So I hope they leave with like a little bit more courage to have that truthful conversation and to set themselves free through having it.